So do you ever have noticed like any like patterns in your life, right? So whether like in the email I mentioned like income, right? So you ever notice like maybe you make a certain amount of income and it's been that way for years. Sometimes you go up, sometimes you go down, but it kind of stays around the same place. Or maybe like weight loss is one that I used to be in, and you can just use this as whatever example in your own life, right? Like I used to own a fitness studio, and I noticed that my clients, they often talked about, before they would come work with me, they often talked about how they went on this like up and down a lot when it came to getting fit or getting in shape. Or it can be like any kind of habit, right? Am I the only one? Do you guys, does that make sense? Do you see kind of patterns in your life where you're like, it fluctuates up and down, right? Fluctuates up and down, but for some reason, it just kind of stays the same and it never breaks out into this place of like the stratosphere, right? You never actually seem to get to that ultimate place where maybe you're trying to go. And so today I want to talk about why that is and how it relates to us in our individual lives and how it relates to like our society, because we have what we do in our life, how we do everything is how we do everything. And if we're doing it on a small scale, then obviously we're doing it on a much larger scale. So let me open up my whiteboard that I started, this new whiteboard feature, learning it here on Zoom.
I like your drawing, it's fun.
Thank you. Okay, can everybody see this, like with the 3 lines?
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so let's take, well, you all can choose. What's like maybe like do you want to talk about like income as an example, weight loss, relationships? Does anything strike a bell in your life that you're like, where's this pattern always showing up for me?
Oh, relationships, man.
Relationships.
Okay.
Okay, all right. Relationships. So let's just give me an example, Patty. So just talk to me about in your life, what do you mean when you say, I see this recurring pattern in relationships?
Yes. So this is kind of what brought me to like people doing something in an exponential project. I think I remember in the 5-day challenge, I was saying like I've been taking a chainsaw to my family tree a bit. And, when I see people who have really problematic views, I kind of cut them out. Or the flip side of that is I become over responsible and I worry about what they're doing and what I should be doing and that kind of thing. So it's like the 2 extremes for me. And then, with the ones that, I decide that I have to be responsible for, I'll show up, but usually with a great deal of resentment. So I'm like all or nothing. I either feel like I'm carrying somebody or I'm defenestrating them, throwing them out the window.
Okay. Got it. So we'll say this one is
kind of all or nothing. Yeah.
Perfect. And this is, let's say, overly engaged. Okay. And okay, perfect. Okay, so perfect, right? Because this is something that when you see this, hopefully you'll be like, oh, this happens everywhere, right? Okay, so we all have this, right? We all have these patterns in our lives. And sometimes you ever look at other people who have the thing that you want, like maybe for you, Patty, it's, like all the relationships seem to work out really well. And, they're like, they communicate, they love each other, they can get along, all that kind of stuff. And like, but why can't I get to that, right? Like, why am I going back and forth, oscillating through this thing? That is like, whatever the high point is, right? So maybe I'll make it like this for you, yeah. So what we do in our lives, I'm gonna move this up, okay, is we often go back and forth just like this. All right. So we have a place and we're like, no matter what happens, like maybe in the world, something happens in your family, in your circles or whatever, something happens. All right. Mm-hmm. And that causes you to go up more towards this overly engaged place. It could be with a person, it could be with a group of people. Right. And you might stay there for a little while and you're like, well, this is enough, or it's not really working, or I can't do this. I can't really sustain it anymore, even though you get some benefits from being overly engaged, right? It's okay. Like you get connection, you get, whatever it is. Like, what do you get from being overly engaged?
I think it probably is, I get a sense of control. And I
Okay.
think that's probably what's happening there.
Okay. What else do you get?
What else do I get? Sense of control. What do I get out of it? Yeah, well, I get the illusion of control. I think that I reduced my anxiety by doing that, by trying to over function for other people. I think it's so something it's probably not wrong, but I think it's wrong, but I think I feel like it reduces my anxiety by being over involved, like trying to convince somebody to do something, like say if you have a sick relative who needs to go to the doctor or care, you feel like you have to keep, you know, chipping away at that to get them to do the thing you want to do because you're anxious about it.
Mhm.
Right. And so I think that's part of it.
So
So
you get
yeah,
some like satisfaction, right? And like
yeah,
knowing that you're like helping. Yeah.
it
So
can fix
yeah.
you. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So you get like the fixing, you get, you get, and when you fix something, because we're all in the paradigm of solving a problem, right? So
Yeah.
everything in life, we're taught to think of as if it's not working, it's a problem that needs to be fixed. And who gets to fix it? I do, right? So then I get to become the like hero, so to speak, in the relationship, right? Okay, great. And then what happens? You get burnt out, right? From being the hero all the time, trying to fix everybody else's problems. And then kind of come back down here a little bit, right? And in this place, you might be like, maybe not actively engaging with anything. Things are like neutral, right? Like things are okay. There's no crisis over here that you have to go fix.
Right.
And then what happens? Something else happens, right? And then you come over here, you come close to this place where you're cutting people off.
Oh yeah.
And what happens when you cut people off?
Well, I think that you feel like what happens when you cut them off? Well, I think you feel like that's another fix, right? That's a problem that I don't have anymore. Snip. And then you expect to feel relief, or maybe you do for a little while, but you don't, because then you start thinking about it all the time, I guess.
So it creates another problem. So you're like, oh crap, I better do something because this cutting off didn't actually work. Let me go find someone else or something else to fix. Look where I am again, up,
Yeah.
and then here we go, over and over, right? And
Yeah.
so here's the thing. This happens in all aspects of our lives when we feel like we can't, especially when we start to see things that like reoccur over and over again, right? So we have this wave of going to like the top end of it, the top end that feels like kind of good, that seems like what was called like the positive side. And then something will happen where we maybe don't believe that we can actually get like any better than that. So we maybe self-sabotage, something comes up and we immediately start going back down. And maybe we hang out, you might, if you're for a little while, you might hang out like right here. Right? Might hang out right here for a little while where nothing's really extreme and nothing's really like terrible. And so here's what we want to look at. So we'll do this one. All right. So here, this line is what we call rock bottom. Can you all see the text? Yeah. Oops. All right.
Yeah.
Right. Rock bottom. So most of the time in life, we don't get to this point. All right. So rock bottom might look like to the place where, like you started cutting off everybody in your life and then you spiral into depression and you don't know what to do about it. And then who knows what happens, what place you go. But this is the absolute worst place you wouldn't want to go, right? That you like, maybe like you might have touched it, but you don't get there. And it's like the fear place. This is like this line right here is what keeps you from getting to rock bottom. Now, unless something else happens, most people don't end up on the rock bottom line, right? Unless something like happens in your life, right? So if we were looking at this from an income standpoint, rock bottom would be like houselessness, right? Where the place where you're like, something has happened and I like, normally I'm fine, I've got all my finances straight, but now I'm houseless, right? So most people don't end up there. But there is another line. Let me, when I get my lines. Purple, all right. Okay, well, we'll pretend this is a straight line. Okay. And this is like the dream. Right? It should be a straight line, right? But this is the dream. This is where everything, like your relationships are all great, right? You have excellent, what for you, Patty, what might that look like in terms of all your your relationships, like the
magic wand moment? I think, what would that look like? I guess that would look like me learning, trying to find that middle ground, right? Like between, feeling responsible. I just want to enjoy people's company. That would be really nice.
Okay, so enjoying people's company. And how do you feel when you're enjoying people's company?
Oh, it's a very light feeling. It's energizing. It's not draining. I think I've come to a place in my life where I see a lot of people as drains, and it's not a really great approach to relationships. So I'd like to see people for who they are, right? That would be good. And just accept them, not as a fix-it project, but as someone whose company I would enjoy being with or talking to. That would be really good.
Okay, so what I'm hearing also in there is
ease. Yeah.
So it sounds like enjoyable, so joyful, ease-filled, just kind of, and maybe even
abundant. That's a great word. I look at people who have all these contacts in their lives and stuff, and it's just like, how do you do that? And I think I just spend so much time judging. I don't know how that works. I think like a lot of people, and I'm in Canada, but you saw with the Trump years in the States, you see that sort of division. Well, that's coming here, and I have friends and family who seem to espouse what I think are problematic beliefs, and I just don't engage, when it would be good to listen to curiosity, but I'm just like, nope, I don't approve, and you're out. So,
yeah. So the opposite of that, right? So
yeah,
your dream state is joyful, ease, and like multiple relationships, many relationships that have those qualities of just being like fun and easy and not so much work because you're not trying to fix them all the time, right?
yeah.
Sounds amazing, right? So what happens, and we all do this, right? So what happens is, like, in order to get towards that, right? So notice how overly engaged is like your attempt to get to this dream place. And so, but for some reason, like whatever reason, you're like, oh, this can't be true, right? And so we get uncomfortable at the top, right? We get uncomfortable at the top. And notice we also get uncomfortable down here on the bottom too.
Yeah.
Right? And so we're uncomfortable in both places, whether we're going towards the good, we get to a certain point, and then, or when we're going towards the quote unquote bad, and we get to a certain point, and it's uncomfortable. So what happens here, this black line, how do I show it? Whatever. You guys can see this, right? So this black line right here, this is what we call your set point, all right?
Yeah, I've heard that in discussion of weight loss.
Yes, right? Yeah. It's the same thing. So we have this place, we all have this just like normal that we exist in, right? So this normal, we don't always recognize it, but when you notice that there's a fluctuation up and down between, like the good that I want to have in my life or the bad that I want to have in my life, there is this middle line that is where we're most comfortable, right? Where we're most comfortable is where this midpoint is. And in times in our life, we'll be like, oh, I really want to go for it. I want to go for the dream. I want to go for the ideal relationships. And so we do. And we engage in the behaviors. Okay, no worries. We engage in the behaviors where we try to go for the dream. And for Patty, this is, oh, I'm going to be like overly engaged. I got to fix because I do want to have these relationships, but I need you to be different than you are in order for me to have you as somebody in my life, right? And so we just go, and then it's, that's not really working. So, or it's really uncomfortable because there's the way I'm going about it's uncomfortable. So what do? We go back down. And what you always do is you're pulling yourself back towards this middle line, towards this set point. I don't know how to draw it. Make sure you guys can see. All right. And so this middle line is the set point. All right, there we go. And so then we go back down, like we go down to this bottom point, right? Where we're cutting off and just, well, like that's not working. So let me go down. It's uncomfortable, right? We might not look at not working as uncomfortable. We might not equate it with that, but that's what happens. You get uncomfortable at this spot and we're like, I can't sustain it. I'm going back down. We repeat it over and over again, all the while trying to maintain this level of comfortability, which is known as our set point in our life, right? It happens with income, it happens with weight, it happens with everything. If you're able to maintain your weight where you want to be, it's because your set point is just in a different place. Now, we might come up with all these reasons why it's something else, right? Genetics, diet, exercise, all that kind, and that's okay. All of those things contribute to the place that you are settled in most often. All right, that's just what it is. That's just what it is. So sometimes, every now and then we might go, you might have a breakout, right? And it's, oh, I'm super overly engaged, but oh, wait, there's something there that's working. I've got a friend here. I've got somebody else on my side. I might find EHP, and you start to go above this that you're used to. All right. And then what happens? Oh, I don't know, life, things stop coming. You're like, I don't know, someone makes you mad, something happens, and then boom, come back down. And then sometimes the falling back down gets you down here, right? And then, but what happens? There's a pull, right? The pull to that set point where you're most comfortable. It'll eventually you'll start doing the activities, doing the things that'll bring you back up towards the set point. Okay. So I want you guys to just start thinking about in your life, like where else might this show up? And the key is, so how do we address this, right? How do we actually get to this dream space, right? This dream line? It's actually very simple.
Okay.
Right? I know it sounds crazy, but it's simple.
Get me off this roller coaster, please.
Yeah. So you're gonna take the set point line and move it up. Okay. That's literally, and you're just creating a new set point for yourself, because that line, the set point line, is also the standard in your life. It's just the standard that you are willing to accept as normal in your life. And so we create our whole lives based on this standard of who we think and what we think we can, like who we think we are and what we think we can have. And so in order to raise your set point, all you have to do is, without a doubt, by no questions asked, just like no hesitancy, is just start engaging in the habits that will raise your standards, right? That keep your standards above this kind of range, this range right here, this overly engaged range, right? So for you, Patty, what might that look like?
That's a good question. I'm just writing this down. I love this. Start behaving in the habits that raise your standards. That is good. I guess that, yeah, I don't know if there's a great way to frame this, but it would be, to stop, to see the humanity of the people I'm engaging with instead of judging their words or actions, which is what I tend to do.
Yes. Okay, that's great. And the work here is like, where do we want to go, right? Do we want to raise our set point or do we want to lower it? And the question is, and the work is for each and every one of us every day, in every relationship and everything that we do, we want to look at what are we making more comfortable and where are we making it less comfortable.